Hi, everyone. My name is Julia, and welcome to the Runways and Byways podcast. I'm your host.
And I'm Katie, and I am also host of the Runways and Byways podcast.
So, what the Runways and Byways podcast is a travel podcast to give you an idea of travel planning and interesting destinations around the world. And the reason I wanted to start this podcast is because I started a travel blog. I love writing and I love talking about my travels through my blog. And I wanted to talk about it a little more, and I especially wanted to get Katie involved because we travel so much together. And we came up with the idea of starting a podcast. And I'm really happy we're doing this. It's been a dream of mine for a long time.
Yes, and we will be discussing the countries that we went to. I'll be asking Julia about the countries she went to. We'll also be having guests come in and we'll be asking them questions. They'll be experts on different subjects, such as safety, places we've never been to, all that kind of stuff. So we're super excited to kind of mix this together with her travel blog to get you guys a full picture of who we are and also what we can help you do, like travel planning and just providing more information for you.
Yeah, we have a lot of content prepared for you guys. We've been working on this for a really long time, so we're super excited. We plan on posting bi-weekly, so probably every 2 weeks, starting from when this first episode is posted. And so make sure you look out for our podcasts. You could find me on social media on Instagram at Runways and Byways. And you could find my website at www.runwaysandbyways.com.
Awesome. So before each episode, we're going to start with a little game. One of us is going to ask the other a question, like a fun fact about a country, and the other one is going to try to guess it. At the end of the podcast, the answer will be revealed. So, Julia, would you like to share your question?
Yes. So I found a pretty cool fact about a certain country. So I'm going to say the fact, like Katie said. And then at the end, Katie's going to guess, and I want you guys to try to guess too. So the fact is, there's no tooth fairy in this country, but rather a tooth mouse.
Interesting.
Yes.
I'm
So
going to keep the answer in my head. And then at the end, I'll try to guess it. And Julia will tell me what the answer is.
do you think you know it?
Travel mouse.
No, not a travel mouse, the tooth mouse.
The,
You weren't listening, were
the
you?
travel mouse. The tooth mouse. It's giving me European vibes. So
Okay.
I'm going to go with some sort of European country. At the end, I'll be more specific, but that's just the vibe that it's giving me.
Okay, but don't let her opinion sway you. If you think it's something else, then don't let her coerce you because chances are she'll be wrong. So
Wow.
it's a hard one.
Yeah, I like that question. It's interesting.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So getting into things, we should probably further introduce ourselves because you know our names, but you don't really know our story. Like, why are we qualified to have a travel podcast? So I'll start off with myself. I'm from New York. I was born and raised on Long Island, New York, and living in New York my whole life. I honestly didn't travel much from New York except like little things here and there to Massachusetts and Connecticut. And I was just tired of it. I wanted to see the world. I always heard of Europe and all these other places, and I had never been. And so for my 16th birthday, my parents offered me either a European cruise or a party. And I mean, I was not very popular when I was 16, so it was a
Mm.
pretty easy decision. So I took the European cruise and I had an amazing time. It totally changed my view on the world. And ever since then, I haven't stayed home for more than a month or two at a time. I'm always going to different places, trying new things. And I recommend everyone get out there. It changed my life. Katie, do you want to talk about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Katie. I was also born and raised in New York, Queens, the most diverse place in the whole world, which is amazing. But growing up, all that my family and I ever went to was Ireland, which is beautiful. My dad's from there, and we have a bunch of family there. And as amazing as it was going to Ireland every couple of years, we never really went anywhere else. So I've always kind of had that wanderlust for traveling just like outside of my comfort zone, outside of what I'm normally used to. And the first time that I really went away was when I was in college. The college offered us a experience, which was to go to Austria, Salzburg, Austria, which is actually the place where they filmed The Sound of Music, which is actually the place that Julia and I first met.
Yes, we actually met traveling. So I think that's pretty fitting for our favorite hobby to do together and everything, and this podcast, because we met while doing what we're talking about. So I think that's pretty awesome. I love meeting people while traveling, especially meeting one of my best friends while traveling. That was just so cool. So, yes, we met in Austria because everyone on our trip, we, like she said, we went through our college, and everyone just kind of wanted to sit around and not really do anything. And me and Katie, we didn't really know each other at the time. We had some mutual friends, but we never really connected. And at the time, we were just like, everyone else wants to sit around, but we want to go out. We want to see Austria. We didn't pay all this money to travel across the world and sleep. So
Yeah.
me and Katie went off on our own, and we had an amazing time. And I think that grew our love for traveling even more, especially our love for traveling together, because we just got along so well, and we always were on the same page with everything. And it was just such a great trip to meet her on and experience traveling with her.
Yeah, and actually going on this trip, I really didn't even want to go. One of our mutual friends, who I didn't really even know very well, convinced me. It was like the last day to sign up, and she was like, "Just come. You could share a room with us. It'll be fun." And I was like, "Okay, fine." And then I get there, and I kind of realized that that mutual friend had a million other mutual friends, and we actually didn't even end up sharing a room. And I kind of felt very alone on the trip. So that was kind of a time where I was really scared. I was nervous to put myself out there, and nobody wanted to go out. So, I mean, I knew I wanted to go out, and Julia also was in the room with me. And she's like, "You know what? Let's just go out together." And I think by me putting myself out of my comfort zone and overcoming that fear caused me to have like one of my best friends and all of these travel experiences that we've had together. And now this travel podcast and the blog, like, and I feel like just really shows too our friendship story, just like putting yourself out there, not being afraid to do different things can give you such a richer and fuller life, which I think is amazing.
100%. And honestly, was it the best trip of my life? No, it was kind of a little weird. I mean, don't get me wrong, Austria is beautiful, but just the social scenario was a little strange. But I got so much out of it through meeting Katie, and we're going to tell you all the places we've been together and separately. And I wouldn't have gone to any of those places really without Katie and without that trip. So put yourself out there, go wherever you want, and you'll see how many opportunities it brings you.
That's true. Like, not every trip is going to be perfect. In fact, probably every trip that you plan will definitely not be perfect, but there's going to be so many opportunities for growth and so many new things that you could try that will just like make you a more interesting, well-rounded person. So that's also why we wanted to make this podcast, to inspire and influence other people who might be nervous to go out of their comfort zone, to show that, we're two young girls. Like, we went to Austria when we were 18, and we traveled throughout our college years by ourselves, which is something that everybody could do solo, as a couple, as friends, everything. So yeah, it all connects together.
It does. And yeah, like Katie said, not every trip is going to be the best trip of your life. You're going to have hiccups. And even though we pride ourselves in being good travel planners, we still have hiccups, and we're going to share that with you. So you can learn from our mistakes, and we could all work together in planning an amazing trip.
Awesome. Yeah. So, should we share some of the places that we've been to together?
Yes, definitely. Katie, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So obviously we went to Austria together, not even really knowing each other at first, but we eventually got to know each other. And then from there, one of the trips that we went on was to go see the Galapagos Islands, which was an amazing experience. We also went with our college at the time. So initially we went to Ecuador, which was an amazing experience. And then from there, we went to the Galapagos Islands. I went to Ireland, obviously, as I mentioned myself, uh, before with my family. I've also been to England. Germany was part of the experience that we went to with our college. We actually went to go see the first concentration camp, which was Dachau, which was a really moving experience that Julie and I got to experience together. In addition, we went on a Caribbean cruise when we were just 20, 21 years old, around that time. And in that cruise, we got to see Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, and two separate locations in Mexico, which was an amazing experience for two young 20-year-olds to have. And we managed to stay safe and have an amazing time. A few years later, we actually ended up in Hawaii. During the time of COVID-19, that was a popular destination to go to. So we wanted to try that out because there were a lot of places we couldn't go to, especially in Europe. So we're definitely going to be sharing that Hawaii experience because that was something that was one of our trips that, it wasn't perfect. We have a lot of tips and tricks to share with Hawaii, even though overall it was a great experience. And of course, we've also been to many other US states together, which we'll get into as the podcast continues. Julia, would you like to share the places that you went to without me?
Yeah, so like Katie said, we went to all of those places either together or we've both been to them separately. But the places I've been to myself without Katie are Canada. I went when I was a lot younger, but also my fiance was living there for a while. So I have a lot of experience going back and forth from Canada and the United States. So I'll talk about that one day. Um, I've been to Spain. I lived in Spain for a little bit. And from Spain, I went to Portugal. I did a weekend in Portugal. That was a lot of fun. I could talk about that. Um, During my European cruise that I mentioned before, it did go to Spain, but it also went to France, Monaco, Italy. And while in Italy, I went to Vatican City. And I've been to Italy a couple times and I lived there for a little bit, so I can talk about that in a lot of detail as well. And I went to Japan. And I know this is a US state, but I feel like it's worth a mention, Alaska, because it's not your typical trip. And besides that, I've been to a lot of other US states. So has Katie. We've been to some together, some separately, but that's a lot of names to list here. So, but we'll talk about a lot of those here as well.
Yeah, and Julia is actually going somewhere this week.
I am. I'm going to Puerto Rico in 4 days. So we're going to have a podcast on that soon. And I'm actually not going to tell Katie anything about my trip
Mm-hmm.
until the podcast. So you're going to be hearing it at the same time as Katie, and it's going to be all new information. And I'm really excited to share my experience with you guys.
Yeah, and as Julia mentioned, she has her fiance who will soon be her husband, and they are going to be going on a honeymoon too.
South Africa and Zimbabwe. We are going in November and December. And I'm super excited. He's been to Africa before, but I've never been. So this is a whole new continent unlocked for me. And I'm really excited. And I'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah, and I think it's so exciting too because both of us, like, we truly do love to travel, and there's just going to be so many trips that are coming up that we're so excited to share with you so we can offer even more tricks in the moment, which I think is super exciting.
Exactly. I'd also like to go on vacation and film a podcast from there, but baby
Ooh,
steps.
yeah, super exciting. Um, so is there anything else mention worthy before we share the answer to our question?
I think we covered it all. I mean, that was a pretty good introduction episode, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You'll continue learning more about us and our travel stories throughout the podcast. And if you ever have any questions, I'm going to set something up so you can send in questions and maybe we'll have a Q&A episode every once in a while.
Perfect. Super exciting.
Awesome. So I think it's time to share the answer to our question. Katie, what's your guess? Well, let me repeat the question first. There is no tooth fairy in this country, but rather a tooth mouse.
Okay, so like I said, I'm getting European vibes from this
Okay.
question. Um, I am going to go with Norway.
No, but you were actually right with Europe.
Okay.
So I'll give you one more guess and then I'll tell you the answer just because you were so close within the range of correctness.
Oh, can I get a hint?
No.
Okay. um, okay, so something similar to Norway. I'm just going to go with Okay, I'm going to do one guess, but I'm also going to think of another guess. So, Finland is my final answer, but I think it also might be Denmark.
Okay. No.
Okay.
By similar to Norway, I meant another European country, but it is not one of those very northern countries. I suppose
Mm.
some of it is northern, but the answer to my question is Spain.
Oh.
Yes, Spain has a tooth mouse. His name is Ratoncito Perez.
Aw.
So if you ever lose a tooth in Spain, you might find a mouse in your room. Don't bother him. He's just going to bring you some money.
Wow.
Yeah, so
I love
interesting.
that.
So we're going to be doing something like this every podcast. We're going to give you a question about a country and you'll have to guess what it is. That was a fun fact about Spain. And next week, 2 weeks from now, next podcast, Katie's going to pick a question for me.
Perfect. I can't wait to watch Julia get it wrong.
We'll see about that.
So next episode, should we give them a hint of what the next podcast will be about?
Yeah, sure. I'll give him a hint. Do you want to give him a hint?
I'll give them the hint.
Mostly because I forgot.
Well, here's my hint, which is not much of a hint, but the next podcast is going to be all about surprises.
Now I remember. Thank you for jogging my memory. Yes.
Yes.
The next podcast is all about surprises, and it's a surprise topic about surprises. So a lot of surprises in our next podcast. If you want to listen in, we totally welcome you to.
Yes, super exciting. It's actually a topic that Julia and I have gotten a ton of questions about. And it was honestly one of our best experiences. It's definitely one of the best experiences I've ever had in my entire life.
Yes, definitely.
Which is saying a lot.
And it was actually a very recent experience. When did this surprise happen? It
was actually a month ago.
A month ago.
It's July 25th and June 25th. We were in this location. I know that because that's the anniversary of Michael Jackson's death.
Oh, yes. We had to celebrate that.
We had to celebrate. Even in a different location, we were celebrating. So
yes, we were remembering.
Yeah. So it was only a month ago, fresh in our brains, and it's going to be a great podcast.
Yeah, and we can't wait to talk about it because I have not even posted about it on my blog. So this is 100% fresh new content. And I can't wait to share our experience because it was just so incredible.
Awesome. Is there anything else to mention before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. Just that I hope everyone comes back for our next episode and sticks along with us through all of this. There's going to be some bumps in the road here and there because we're both very new to podcasting, but I'm really excited for this, and I'm sure Katie is too.
Yes.
And I hope you are.
Yeah, don't forget to check out our Instagram, travel blog, and on the travel blog, because we're travel experts, we have some services for you, which are to provide some recommendations, maybe even choose a destination for you and give you some advice. So you should also check that out as well.
Yes, so you could find that at www.runwaysandbyways.com. It's the same spelling as the podcast name, just type in a www in front and .com at the end, and it'll take you to the website where you could find all the blog posts and all the travel planning resources, as Katie mentioned.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. So I guess that's all for episode 1.
Yay.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on episode 2 for our surprise.
Bye. Looking forward to it.
Bye.